Hello everyone. Today there's an indication, a slap in the face, metaphorically speaking, that Trump might be delivering to Netanyahu, according to a report in the Washington Post. The article speaks rather openly, and while the current indicators aren't entirely reliable or definitive enough to confirm Trump is putting serious pressure on Netanyahu to stop the war in the Middle East, it still seems consistent with Trump's general policy in the region. This slap, if you will, appears logical and fits with Trump's past behavior. While the information isn't confirmed for the first time, we see the Washington Post quoting Trump directly and clearly, warning Netanyahu, "If you don't stop the war in Gaza, we will abandon you. You'll be on your own." Now, it's possible this information was planted or not entirely credible, especially since many of the sources aren't named, but it's definitely making waves. France is angry, the UK is furious, even Canada's Justin Trudeau is saying, "We will take concrete actions against Israel and impose sanctions." They're saying, "You need to allow aid into Gaza and end the war immediately." When these countries start raising their voices like this, you know something big is stirring. Meanwhile, tensions are reportedly rising between the White House and Netanyahu. Still, none of this is 100% verified. On the ground, the situation in Gaza remains extremely dangerous. Netanyahu recently announced, with astonishing boldness, that Israel has lifted the blockade on Gaza and allowed humanitarian aid in, allegedly under pressure from Trump. They're trying to claim Trump forced us, so we let aid in. This is supposedly tied to a deal involving Aden Iskandar, a situation where Trump doesn't want to look weak in front of Israel or Hamas after making an agreement to get Iskandar released. So what happened? They let in 5 trucks, just 5, into Gaza, a region with over 2.25 million people on the brink of famine. This is an insult, not a gesture of goodwill. It's a slap in the face to the people of Gaza, to Trump and to the entire world. Claiming 5 aid trucks means lifting the blockade? That's shameful. After this humiliating move, the so-called Zakiadra states, Britain, France and Canada, said, "No, this isn't acceptable." They may have sensed the insult. They warned, "If you don't immediately allow significant humanitarian aid into Gaza, we will take concrete measures." Gaza needs at least 1,000 trucks per day, distributed across the entire region, not just in select areas. To properly respond to the crisis, the number should be much higher at first, perhaps 5,000 or even 10,000 trucks daily. The humanitarian situation is absolutely catastrophic. These countries are now warning Netanyahu, "If you don't end the war and allow aid in, we will impose actual consequences." What are those consequences? Potential sanctions. They're also bringing up the issue of settlements in the West Bank, threatening to include that in their actions as well. But would any of these steps actually affect Israel significantly? Not really. Militarily, Israel is not heavily reliant on the UK or Europe. The US remains its primary arms supplier, so any European sanctions might be more symbolic than impactful. That said, Israel, as a highly sensitive and spoiled state on the global stage, tends to overreact to even small gestures. It might see these actions as major threats, fearing isolation or damage to its reputation. In reality, these measures might be minor, but due to Israel's global status, even symbolic moves can rattle them. So what's this slap really about? It's about Trump potentially going public, criticizing Netanyahu directly, saying, "Stop this war immediately or you won't get weapons or support from us. We'll sanction you." That kind of direct and public attack would hit hard. If Netanyahu believes this could go public, he might prefer to back down quietly rather than be humiliated. He could then claim, "Fine, I'll stop the war, enter negotiations and support the Egyptian initiative for reconstruction, without displacing the population." But what's happening on the ground right now says otherwise. People are asking an important question. Where is the ground invasion Netanyahu has promised over 10 times? Yes, we've seen airstrikes, massacres and displacement in Khan Yunis and northern Gaza, but where's the full-scale ground assault? According to the New York Times and satellite imagery, Israeli forces are spread across 4 areas, one near Beit Lahia, one near Beit Hanun, one on the outskirts of Khan Yunis, and a smaller one elsewhere. These are not full-scale invasions. These are positions, and they're not inside the cities. So again, where is the ground invasion? We haven't seen it. Could this hesitation be related to Trump's reported comments? Possibly, or it might be internal politics. Maybe Netanyahu is trying to calm his far-right allies. Ironically, figures like Bezalel Smotrich were actually angry that 5 aid trucks were allowed into Gaza. Smotrich even said, "These trucks are useless. They shouldn't be going to Hamas. We should keep them hungry and push them to Egypt, then send them to a third country." The European Union responded to Smotrich, saying his comments were abhorrent and unacceptable. So in summary, we're seeing a volatile situation, increasing international pressure, tension between Netanyahu and Trump, far-right dissatisfaction in Israel, and a worsening humanitarian crisis in Gaza. And still, no true resolution in sight. Well, because Trump wants to end wars. That was his brand when he won the election. But now he's in deep trouble with the whole Russia-Ukraine situation. He's been playing neutral, saying, "I won't interfere. I spoke to Putin." But Putin is playing him like a rag doll and is now piling up troops on Finland's border in a terrifying way. It's embarrassing for Trump. He can't afford to fail at stopping the Russia-Ukraine war and also fail to stop Netanyahu. You can't portray Putin as this strong, nuclear-armed superpower and then also let Netanyahu act like he's your equal. Netanyahu isn't your equal. He's supposed to be your subordinate, someone you can discipline easily. So Trump can't afford to lose both fronts, having war still raging in Europe and in the Middle East. That's why it makes total sense for him to pressure Netanyahu. Another reason, the trillions of dollars the US earned weren't those largely from the Middle East? The investments heading to the Gulf and the UAE are super important. That's all part of the Middle East, right? If a major war breaks out in the region, nobody benefits. Not the US, not the Gulf. It would be a disaster. That's what pushed Trump to start hitting Netanyahu hard on the Iran issue. That's a real, verifiable blow. Because no matter how many times you say, "This is our red line," or "They can't enrich uranium," or "We won't allow it," it's all nonsense. If Iran decides to enrich uranium, or if negotiations fail, or the whole thing falls apart, you're not going to strike Iran. Let's be real. You've pulled troops out, you've reduced your presence, and you already took a hit in Yemen. And Jake Sullivan didn't visit Israel because of Yemen, despite false reports by Barak Ravid, claiming that the US objected to the Israeli campaign in Gaza, and that Sullivan got upset. Please. Sullivan had criticized the campaign way before that. Before Trump even left office, he was already against the campaign. So why did you send C-17 planes to Ben Gurion? The truth is, you're scared. That's why Sullivan didn't go, because of Yemen. Because Yemen now has air superiority over Israeli skies. Now, the Middle East is supposed to be your investment zone, your sponsored region. A headline-grabbing place. You've brought in $4 trillion for the US economy with deals and eye-catching announcements. All that collapses if you launch a war in Iran. So now what? You're closing that door. If they don't cooperate, you'll just slap sanctions on them and be done with it. As for Gaza, if that front opens up and talk turns to displacement or war with Egypt, don't even try to justify it. I told you, they're not going to take a single inch and they're not going to cross the border. That would be a massive crisis. China will get involved, Russia will too. And we're already present, we're not going to sit back. You have to understand, this will become a huge, dangerous escalation, a massive trap for the whole region. And nobody wants that. We've locked the situation down. The key isn't just in Egypt's hands, it's with Egypt, Libya and Cyprus. Even if Trump came out and said, "I'll take in the 2 million people from Gaza, give them American citizenship, put them in the White House with me," we still wouldn't agree. Bottom line, the people of Gaza belong in Gaza. The people of Palestine belong in Palestine. That's the truth, and it's what should happen. If you go down this insane path again, the consequences for the US will be enormous and devastating. And you won't be able to handle it. Why? Because when you tried to take just one weak spot, you thought Yemen was easy. Everyone jumped on Yemen with arrogance, bullying and contempt. But the beating you took in that war was humiliating. The whole region saw it. And now you can't even visit Israel because of what happened in Yemen. Not Trump, not his VP, nobody. And you can't stop the escalation you're seeing. The rockets are still falling. How do you plan to stop this? You've already pulled out from every front, economically, militarily. You can't handle a wider war involving Egypt. You've already shut the door on Iran's nuclear file, even if only through sanctions. And you failed to stop Putin's war. The Russia-Ukraine war made Trump a tool for manipulation. Everyone in America knows that Putin has been manipulating Trump in a major way. Putin and Trump don't have the energy or will to fix things. All of this, sooner or later, will end up hitting Netanyahu hard. But so far there's nothing on the ground to show that this is imminent or real. Yes, it's logical. Yes, there are some signs leaking out. And no, it's not fake like it was during Biden's term. That deceitful Zionist was walking a different path, but now what's happening is more logical, and some developments are starting to appear, though nothing has materialized on the ground yet. For things to be real on the ground, there has to be a deal, an end to the war, and official adoption of the Egyptian initiative to rebuild Gaza without resettling its people elsewhere. As long as you're building food distribution centres on the Egyptian border along the coast, not at the Rafah crossing or even the Kerem Shalom crossing, but instead placing them along the coastal area where you expect Palestinians to flood toward the Egyptian border. As long as all these developments are happening and increasing, I won't buy into the talk. Is it logical? Yes. Should it happen? Absolutely. Because that serves the interest of the United States, and even Israel, to be honest. I keep emphasizing this, what's happening now. The scale of Israeli terrorism is severely harming Israel and harming the Jews. Even American Jews. Many of them are uncomfortable with Trump. They see him as fueling anti-Semitism. I swear it's true. Why? Because he's targeting student activists, deporting those who support Palestine and oppose the occupation. The Jewish community there sees that as encouraging anti-Semitism. When you portray Israelis as a racially superior group, your actions will eventually lead to more violent reactions against them, either racially or religiously. All of this, the famine in Gaza, the ongoing genocide of the native population there, the arrogance in speech, and the absence of international accountability for Israel, will eventually create a global popular backlash that no country will be able to control. And these movements, which are becoming extremely hostile toward anything Jewish, not just Israeli, are rooted in extremism. You're feeding that extremism. But who will it eventually strike? All of us. Seriously. You're giving it fuel to grow and destroy everything. You're inciting violence and promoting a sweeping, generalized hatred that says all Jews are the same. That's pure madness. Of course, not all Jews are the same. This is dangerous talk. And who noticed this? Many American Jews are seeing Trump's crackdown on US campuses as something that actually strengthens anti-Semitism, not weakens it. Actually, what's happening is more about hostility toward Jews themselves than toward anti-Semitism. And even the term anti-Semitism itself isn't entirely accurate in this context. What's happening is extremely dangerous. And according to a fully realistic political view, this should lead to an end to the war. Any other path would be illogical. And you'll witness total chaos, I swear. Any course of action other than the one I've described will lead to madness in the region, to endless conflict. And if Egypt's borders are breached, no one will be able to close them again easily. For us, Egyptian territory is non-negotiable. Any forced entry of Palestinians into Egyptian land is something we will never tolerate, ever. That would mean an all-out war, which benefits no one. So yes, it makes sense for all of this to fall on Netanyahu's head. But up to this point, no matter how clear or direct the words may be, the actions on the ground don't support it. We'll continue to follow these developments moment by moment. Please leave your thoughts and comments. They mean a lot to me. Thank you all very much, and I'll see you in the next video.